Welcome to We Have a Spiritual Problem, a podcast exploring the deep interconnections between personal wellness, societal challenges, and spiritual growth. Hosted by Dr. Jeff Armstrong, this thought-provoking series tackles the big questions. How do we cultivate a well-centered life in a world that often feels unbalanced? What role does spirituality play in solving today's personal and collective problems? Drawing from concepts of well-centered fitness, spiritual, physical, intellectual, emotional, and social wellness, we bring you engaging conversations with experts, thinkers, and everyday people who challenge us to rethink our approaches to health, happiness, and harmony. Together, we uncover solutions to life's problems that start within. We make about 35,000 decisions every day. Most of them are insignificant, but about 1 to 2% of those decisions are life-changing, and most of those are split-second decisions. My guest is Dr. Geoffrey Mount Varner. Dr. Geoffrey is currently an assistant professor, attending physician, and chief and interim chairman at Howard University Hospital, where he focuses on emergency medicine. He is the author of several books, including Training Your Mind for Split-Second Decisions and Home Alive, 11 Must Rules for Surviving Encounters with the Police. In this episode, we delve into the profound impact of spirituality on decision-making and personal resilience. Dr. Geoffrey shares how aligning with a higher power can provide clarity and purpose, even in the face of life's most challenging split-second decisions. We discuss practices like gratitude, meditation, and journaling, which help us to stay centered, and explore how a spiritual disconnection can contribute to societal issues like mental health challenges and isolation. Dr. Geoffrey also offers insights into compassion, forgiveness, and mindfulness as tools for overcoming fear and bridging divides. Drawing on his extensive work in emergency medicine and his books, he emphasizes the importance of self-positivity, internal belief systems, and treating others with love and empathy. Whether it's navigating high-pressure environments or simply striving to live a more connected and fulfilling life, this conversation is rich with wisdom and practical advice. Dr. Geoffrey, it is my pleasure to have you on this podcast. You were on my Aging Well podcast, and I just loved the conversation we had. I feel like you are somebody who has so many different perspectives to bring to this question of, do we have a spiritual problem? I want to open up with the question, what role do spirituality and personal beliefs play in your life and work?
Thank you for having me back. Thank you very much for the question. If I understand the question correctly, my answer becomes it's spirituality and beliefs, they are aligned, meaning that I do believe that I'm connected to something bigger than me, but that's based upon my belief. I do believe that, and this is what we should probably get into the show later. I mean, I should probably bring this up later, but let me get right into it. I think that everything that happens to us for our good. But it's got to be your mindset about understanding that it's for your good. It may not be your immediate good, but it's for your good. And let me prove it to you. I ask your audience to think back to something that happened to them many, many years ago, really, really bad. And did they not somehow, many years later when the pain had decreased, did they see something? I'm not saying that the event was good, but did they see something helpful? It may have been very small, but they don't realize that small piece could lead to a bigger piece later. I do believe that, to your question, that I am a very spiritual person who has strong beliefs based upon being spiritual.
Yeah, I guess the first question I should have asked you was, how do you define spiritual?
Spiritual is connected to, not just being connected to something bigger than you, being in tune with it, being able to hear it, being able to feel it, and taking time out to align with it. A good example would be anger. How many people have experienced being angry? That's an okay emotion, but really what's going on is you're out of line. You're out of alignment with your spirit. And by the way, I need to say this: the true spiritual you and the spiritual role, it's positive. It's all positive. It's all good. So when you find yourself having a negative feeling, you're out of alignment with that true spiritual role, and that's okay. The spirit to me is something bigger than me, but something that I can connect to. It's something I can reach out to. It's something I can commune with.
And your writings and your work, as a trauma doctor and someone who has written about split-second decisions, as well as Getting Home Alive And I'd like to touch in all those different topics as we talk about kind of what is the source of a lot of these problems that we face in humanity and society. I think you experience a lot of what we refer to as spiritual problems. So when you hear that phrase, we have a spiritual problem, what does that mean to you?
It means that we are experiencing a disconnection from one another. I do think that we're all connected vibrationally, that we're all in the same space and we can feel one another. So when there's a spiritual problem, it means we've lost our connection to the issue. Say, I argue with Dr. Jeff. It's because I've lost my connection to you. There's a spiritual issue going on. Remember what you've said, there's a spiritual issue going on. It may not be your issue, because I actually think that our thoughts control everything. Your thoughts control everything, and your spirit helps control your thoughts. So no one can take you out of alignment but you. I just think that most people are not self-aware enough to recognize that.
So do you think this spiritual problem, whatever it might be, is connected to a lack of meaning, community, or purpose in people's lives?
I'm sure it's all of those, but I would like to add that what's adding to it is distractions. I can tell just by how you're conducting this interview that you probably meditate. I did not talk about this, but I bet you that you meditate. That provides a calmness and also allows you to connect with the overall spiritual world. A lot of people are on their cell phone. So the time that they should be aligning and settling down, they're distracted with their cell phones, their electronics, and the pace of the world has changed such that if you don't intentionally take time to relax and calm down, you can just be off to the races.
And I assume you meditate and do you journal? What do you do to center yourself on a daily basis and align yourself?
I've meditated for years and I still meditate. In the last 3 or 4 months, I started journaling. I don't find it as helpful as people say it was. I want to stick with it until the end of the year. But I have to admit, every so often I go back and I look at what I've written. And so maybe it's helpful, but not as nearly as helpful as it was presented to me.
What's your process for journaling?
It's funny you say that. I have divided it into 3 or 4 sections. I start off with a whole gratitude. It's real short, and it's got to be something that's happened in the last 24 hours or in the next 24 hours. That gets you in the right mindset. Then I have in there reflections. Maybe, and it's often piggybacked from the like previous day. There's something about what's going on or what are my thoughts about something. And then done one's WO, working it out. Something I'm trying to work out in my mind. Reflections I'm just thinking about. Work it out. I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do I do this? All right. And the final one is mantra. What's my mantra for the day? And often it goes on, the same mantra stays for about 3 to 4 days. That's my process. And then I freestyle.
Yeah, I've gone through different processes with it. When I really first started journaling was when I would just go through a goal for each of dimensions of my well-centered fitness, which are spiritual, physical, intellectual, emotional, and social. And he pointed out to me, he said, do you say that in like a particular order? And I said, I guess I kind of do. I mean, I always prioritize the spiritual and the physical, and then the others all kind of follow. He said, because it spells out SPIES. And he thought that was really cool. And he appreciates every time I give him a plug between this and the Aging Well podcast. I keep plugging every time I say SPIES, I give him credit. So I go through each of those and spell out a goal for the day. Over time, it gotten a little bit repetitive where it's like the same basic goals every day. So I've drifted away from that a little bit. I've done where I'll go through and list my opportunities. And when I talk about opportunities, it's the things that I think are a bit more negative in my life. Like if I have a meeting coming up with somebody I really don't want to meet with, I have the opportunity to meet with this person. Now, I wouldn't have done that this morning. It would have been a positive interview to say, I get the opportunity. It would have been a very positive. I get the opportunity to interview Dr. Geoffrey Mount Varner today, and I'm excited about that. But if it was like, going into work and I got to go meet with my dean or something like that. And again, I shouldn't say my dean because I like every time I ever meet with Mark, he's great. But you know what it is, have these meetings or you got to deal with somebody you want to deal with. It's an opportunity. When I get frustrated living in Oregon many times. I had the opportunity to live there, and I had the opportunity to live in Oregon because of the relationships and the experiences that my children are having, because it's, for them, it's giving them, who knows what. I kind of did that in the process a bit, and now it's more reflective pieces. But then I always generally end with, I'll write out in big letters, gratitude with 2 T's, to remind myself to have an attitude of gratitude. And I have my same mantras that I'll write out every day, which are, be your best today, be better tomorrow. I am third, from the Gail Sayer book. To God be the glory, grace and peace. I write those out every day. And then on occasion, I'll write out my mission statement or my core values. Trying all that just to kind of set up my brain and my spiritual framework for the day and get myself in a more positive currency to start the day. Now, it doesn't mean that it doesn't diminish very quickly as soon as I get to a roundabout or something like that. But at least it starts me off at a pretty reasonable level of positivity. And then I'm trying to get back into doing it at the end of the day. I used to try and end the day with a positive quote, something to reflect from the day, ending on a positive note that kind of sets me into my sleep. That's going to help me be a little bit more restorative in my sleep. So
I like how you mentioned that sleep.
No, this is a conversation. This isn't an interview.
So you and I, we were definitely aligned that at night I try to settle down. I found it very helpful because it helps me go into the positive part of sleep in a positive spirit. I go through my day on list 5 things that I'm grateful for. And that settles me and it makes me feel good. It can be something as simple as, I had this wonderful donut, but often it's more than that. And that settles me down. And I've noticed I get better sleep when I focus on those 5 things that I'm grateful for. I go right into a restorative phase, it seems like.
I'm struggling with restorative sleep right now. I track it with a Garmin watch every night, and I'm sleeping better, but I'm not waking up restored based on the different numbers they give you in the morning. I'm trying to figure out what it is. I think some of it might be inflammation. I don't think it's as much stress. I don't think I'm going to bed and I'm not tossing and turning. It's just something physiologically that I have to kind of work on. But I know that I get better sleep, better quality and deeper sleep when I end the day on a more positive note, put away all the electronics, read, pray, do those types of things that set my mind in a more peaceful state.
But, just to support you, inflammation will cause difficulty to sleep. I've noticed that if I watch a violent movie or a violent show up to an hour prior to going to sleep, I wake up with a headache.
Oh, wow.
And that's never been the case. And part of that is just the inflammation from all the stress of watching it. So I've learned, or if I argue prior to going to sleep, I can go into chill mode so I can get a nice sleep.
So I got to work on that. I got to be more chill. Where do we go next? That's the challenge with this podcast. A lot of times I get to these wow moments or aha moments, and I got to think, okay, where do I want to go next with this?
Well, let me help you. You mind if
Let's do it.
So I think the other thing about the spiritual part, don't think I already started by saying that I believe that the spiritual world is good. Anything bad that happens to you, and this is the part I was saying, most people are not ready for this. Most people are not ready for this. It burns them up. So actually, I've learned to change it. Most things that happen to you, you created. Why? You create through your thoughts. Your thoughts are creative. And that's the part that usually throws people off, because people want to say, well, he did this or she did that. I think it was created in your mind first. For anyone who's, this is their first time in this spiritual space, it sounds crazy. But once you come a long journey, you start to see that if you focus on something and believe it, you can create anything in your life. I've learned that if there's something I want to do, the old me would have been like, well, I need to do this. I now go into how I want it and feel it, envision it, and sit in it and meditate on it.
There's so many different examples of that you hear about. People have their vision board or whatever it is, where they put up little pictures that they want to accomplish. They keep reflecting on that on a daily basis, and it manages to come through. It doesn't mean that you're just wishing something to happen. Generally, actions have to follow those desires as you're putting your mind in that right mindset to be able to pursue those things. If it's something you really want, you're going to start to act in a way that's going to lead you to it.
And it's your belief in it as well. You have to truly believe it. But where I was going before I digressed my own was, I think that people allow fear to disrupt their spiritual world. They say we have 27 different human emotions, 27 different human emotions. But the number one that causes the most issues is fear. And, we were only born with two natural fears: fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. Those are only two natural fears. Any other fear that you have is self-created. If it's self-created, then it can be changed. But this is the nexus that people cannot get past. My fear wasn't I wouldn't want this. I would create this. Somehow you did. Now you can take time and walk it back and figure out where it came from, but it's not natural. So you learn to manage your fear, and if you move past it, life becomes easy.
It's interesting. Fear of falling is a natural fear, because I would think that's also one that we learn. You see kids, when they start to walk and they fall, they often look at their parents and it's like, well, what should I do here? And if the parents don't react, then they start crying. But if the parents sit there calmly, they don't cry.
It may seem that way. And so that is true. But in the study, it looked at children falling. And you are right. Children falling. And based upon controlled groups, it was determined that the fear of falling was natural. Yeah, it was natural. Now, can you develop it later, or can it get worse later? Absolutely. Yeah. The fear of loud noises. I didn't read this whole study because I thought it was going to bother me. Because imagine how you've got to create some like loud noises. But in the conclusion, it said, yeah, that's a natural fear for people. Fear of loud noises and fear of falling. So when people fear of spiders, it wasn't natural. That was somehow created.
Yeah, and fear is all, for the most part, in our head. Pain itself is in our head. It's all perceptions. And what are we doing with that nervous system signal that's coming up to our brain and saying that, okay, I've perceived this. I've heard this loud noise, or my eyes see that I'm falling. What am I doing with that thought?
Absolutely. The story is told, the old man who gathered his kids around him as he was dying. He says, kids, I've been through a lot in my life. I've had a lot of bad things that happen. Most of it all happened in my mind. And that's the truth. If you think about it, most bad things, the majority of bad things that happen to us, I don't like using that language bad, but the majority of negative emotions happens in our mind. Most of it doesn't happen in the real world.
So how do you see connections between spirituality or a lack thereof and issues like mental health, social isolation, and the extreme polarization that we see in our society? And I could probably extend that list even further, but, add in this, and that. And, we see a lot of these different, probably more disconnects than connections in our societies.
Wait, please.
So I guess, do you see that our spirituality or a lack thereof are at the root of many of the problems that we see with like mental health, social isolation? You could probably throw depression in there, and even just extreme polarization that we see in our society.
Yes, I do. Especially as it relates to depression. And obviously, as a medical scientist, as a doctor, I do believe that there are organic etiologies. I do believe in those. But I also think that there are many depression. Seasonal affective disorder would be a good one. And that's when people get depressed during a certain season, during a certain period. I do think that a lot of that is about belief in what's going on around, or lack of belief about something good coming in the future. And so the belief, again, it comes from the spirit. The belief is self-created. A belief is what you constantly think about. And let me jump to what you constantly think about. It's your habitual thoughts. People say, what are my habitual thoughts? I would encourage your listeners at some point, set your alarm on your phone for 5 different times. And when it goes off, ask yourself, what was I thinking? We'll see that we have a pattern of thought, pattern of habitual thoughts. And that helps form the beliefs about you. Now, I can say, I believe that I'm the greatest in the world. That's outwardly, it's overtly easy. But if when I set my phone, I'm saying, oh, I'm scared. I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know. But that's the true you. That's who you are. And so if you fix your belief system, and the problem is that people try to fix it, they might go here to here. No, 1% change, 1% change, 1% change. Improve your belief system about you. Now now I'm guilty of that. I want to improve my belief system, say about my wife. I believe that you could be a better wife, or you can be a better son, you can be a better daughter. No, I've got to improve my belief system about what I can do to change the world. Did I go off on a tangent or did I answer?
No, I think you've answered that question. And I think kind of leads me to, I don't remember if it was your first book or second book, but your book about Home Alive.
Yeah.
Can you address the topic of that book from a spiritual perspective?
Absolutely. So the audience already probably knows I am an emergency medicine physician. And so I take care of anything and everything that comes to the ER. So I interact with the police a lot. Then the other arm, I have sisters. One of my sisters, chief judge. So she's the judge of many counties around us, and my other sister's a judge. So people know us. So I had access to officers. I was able to write this book about making your home alive. Now, it was not about how to fight the police, about what it was, hey, if you're pulled over, these are the steps you need to make. That means that you need to take to get home alive. And I got a lot of flack for this. It had nothing to do with the officer. It had everything to do with your mindset and with you being focused on do what you have to do to get home alive. And a lot of that was about your spirit. Your mindset is related to your spirit, it's related to your belief. Hey, I believe this is going to work out. I believe that I'm going to get home alive. And when you believe that, you exude that. You like move things in the universe for you. The universe opens up for you. You believe it, the universe is going to fix things for you. And if you believe that things are going to go wrong, unfortunately, that same belief works both ways. Things are going to go wrong. So in my book, I outline ways to make it home alive. And a lot of it is about mindset. Now I get it. I need you all to know. And no way am I saying that it's the individuals. It's all on the individual. But having a son and many nephews, my whole goal is I don't care what happens. You do what you need to do. Be who you need to be. Endure what you need to endure so you can get home alive. And when you get home alive, then we use whatever resource we have to fix whatever problems.
What roles do concepts like compassion, forgiveness, and mindfulness play in solving problems that might be described as spiritual problems?
Forgiveness is key. People think that and let me tell you why it's key. Often people think you're forgiving someone else. No, forgiveness is for you. It's probably the most selfish thing you can do. Forgiveness is so that you can move on from whatever happened. No matter whose fault it is, it's you forgiving yourself so that you can move on to wherever you are going. It relieves you of that negative energy and of that negative burden. And believe it or not, people who forgive the easiest are often the most compassionate people as well, because they don't have all that negative energy.
So you come from a family of, you're a doctor, your sisters are judges. Obviously, you come from a family that has a bit more of a scientific, structured background in terms of the law being something, written down and put in endless journals of law. For those coming from a background like that, and I come from the same kind of scientific, evidence-based background, how do you reconcile or explore the intersection between science and spiritual or existential questions? How does the spirit coincide with the physical and the more evidence-based scientific side of how we might think about the world?
I don't think that they are separate. Science is just one tool that we can use to understand the spiritual world. The spirit the spiritual world plays a role in everything. Science is the language that we use. If you are not a scientist and you're an artist, artistry is the language that you use to understand the spiritual world. In other words, it's just a tool. I like that question because you bring in focus what a lot of people like to say. A scientist, therefore we see the world objective and factually. Well, the spirit world is factual if you believe it. But if you don't believe it, it's not going to be factual. And by the way, let me just talk about that being, there's this thing about objectivity. I forgot what person said, but there's no such thing as objectivity. People say 1 + 1 is 1. 1 + One is two, that's an objective fact, but that can be disproven depending on how you look at it. We're going off just on a tangent, so let me not go on that tangent because I want to stay where we are, and that is the spiritual world can be proven in whatever language you choose to have proven in. You just have to believe in it.
Science deals in probabilities. Nothing is absolute. I tell my students all the time that never use the word proven to me in a paper because nothing is proven. There's always that chance that the science could have missed something or could be off just a little bit. And so it's an idea of we're moving closer to the truth. As we move in the spiritual dimension, we're doing the same thing, exploring, and we're finding out more and more. And for me personally, I'm starting to see more and more of the science and the spiritual starting to come together as you get into like some of the studies in quantum physics. And, as we get smaller and smaller in the understanding of the physical universe, we're getting closer and closer to something spiritual as we move out into the universe and start exploring galaxies and the breadth of a universe that can't even comprehend the ends of. Then start getting into something spiritual there. And, again, it's something bigger than self. And I guess maybe from the quantum physics standpoint, there's something extremely smaller than self too. But, it's not, neither have to be mutually exclusive. I think the more we explore it, the more we get into the fact that it's more mutually inclusive.
I think you framed that very well. They don't necessarily have to be mutually exclusive. In fact, they're not mutually exclusive. That was brilliant. Very good.
Well, thank you. I like when somebody says I'm brilliant.
Don't we all?
Yeah, I say it to myself all the time, but it just starts to become a little less believable from myself. So what practices or tools, whether spiritual, secular, or scientific, do you believe can really help individuals and communities as well? Because I think there's a need for communities to spiritual and existential struggles. What responsibility or what practices or tools can we use to just help our communities and individuals address these struggles?
Well, at least as it relates to the Western world, and I've done this. For those of us who believe in organized religion and in the Christian space, I believe the Bible is a good starting point. What I said I was guilty of is that I would say, hey, but the Bible is not absolute, and it was written several years later. It's going to do many different versions. But the Bible is actually it's a guide. It's almost like a spiritual guide. And so if you rid yourself of the lens of viewing it from this isn't true to how can this help me grow? And is this story just an analogy from something in my life? So, but as long as you've got something that can ground you, it allows you to grow. Otherwise, you keep jumping on all these different thoughts. You don't know where you're grounded. So I think that the Bible is one way of providing a platform for people to grow.
Yeah, I like that idea of grounding. I had Dr. Asim Desai in a recent interview for this podcast, and he's a cardiologist. He was explaining, he's a Hindu Christian, which again, people are like, how can you be Hindu Christian? But as we look at kind of, we have so many different denominations of Christianity. We have so many other expressions of faith. He looks at it as a cardiologist like the ECG, getting different views of the same heart, each view giving us a slightly different perspective. I think it's key for us as we explore our spirituality and our understanding of the universe is to first ground ourselves where we are at and then develop that perspective that we're in, and then be open to the understanding that people are grounded in different places and none of us have that perfect view of the universe. The key is to be grounded first and to approach our own spirituality regardless of our belief system or our perspectives relative to others. We have to be grounded in our own belief system first and not be inconsiderate of other people's beliefs.
That's so true. That was very good. You can be anything you want to be, as long as you don't impede the rights of other people. Again, I know I've said this a few times, but I believe it is a core value. The universe was created for your good. The universe was created to be helpful for you. The universe wants to see you succeed, to see you do well. If you believe that and act with that faith, most things, I just don't like to use the word every, but the majority of things, almost all things, are going to work out for you. It's that faith. And that's where I believe that people miss the spiritual world. They say, okay, spiritual world, I believe I'm going to do well in this test tomorrow. Did I do? Well, you already failed. By you even questioning, did you do well? You failed. Because belief is the, I forgot the Bible verse, but it's the expectation of things unseen. And belief also would say, if I believe this to be true, I believe I have to do the steps so that this can happen. People want to make belief a magic show. It's not a magic show. It's a process. And so our beliefs are formed by our losses and our wins. And just by viewing it as a loss is a problem. Because if there are required lessons for success, and maybe those lessons come from, quote, losses, is really a loss. It's a lesson. It's one of those stories. It's one of those, I'm not playing with words. It's just understanding the world. If the world was created for my good, and this happened, which is, quote, a loss, wait a minute, this wasn't a loss. This is something good. Let me figure out what the good is.
Yeah, and I think that's easy sometimes for us when it's the small things that we lose in and, or fail in or whatever. But it gets to be more of a challenge when we experience the big things in life, like losing a child to cancer, or, you as a emergency room doctor, the number of people that have to deal with situations where a loved one doesn't make it. You just can't say, oh, it all works together for good, which I believe. And that's a hard thing, is like, well, how is it good? What kind of God is it that says all things work together for good when I just lost the person I most love in the world? But we have to keep that perspective. There is something bigger than self. What is this contributing to us as an individual, who we are going to be, not necessarily right now, but tomorrow, a year from now, 10 years from now? I do believe that if we allow it, everything is going to work together for some greater purpose. It may not seem like good for me, but it's good for someone somewhere. Does that make sense to you?
It makes sense. And thank you for giving me slight pushback on a child dying. Timing is everything. You're obviously not going to tell someone they're going to do something. No. It's something for your good, but you're right. It's a big leap of faith for you to understand that something good is going to come out of this for the overall good. And I do believe, since we're connected to the universe, the overall good includes you.
And I have a couple friends that have lost their kids to brain. I have one friend that has lost two children, very young ages. I'm not sure of what cause for the daughter, but the son died of brain cancer. It was a DIPG. Another friend lost their son about the same age, roughly about the same time. Ooh. And I would never expect them now to trivialize anything that they are feeling or suffering in that loss. But I know that despite the fact that, there's this tragic loss, I'm a better person from that. I've seen compassion from them. I see the value of life to a greater extent through the eyes of their children. Both of their kids, to go through what they went through, but to see the smiles on their faces, it always blew me away. There's something much going on here than tragedy. It's just hard to put a finger on, but I know in my heart and my soul that I don't want to say it has to happen, because then you start going back to them. What kind of God would allow this to kind of happen? But I think it's allowed to happen for reasons that are beyond our comprehension, and for something much, much greater than just the situation it puts us in. Does that make any sense at all?
It made a whole lot of sense. And even what you said about what kind of God, that question creates a problem, because then, and don't be wrong, I say that, what kind of God, but puts us in the position of questioning God. Like we don't question God about being in a warm house. We don't question God about being able to breathe. We question God about being able to like see. It's like the story of like Job. You know, the story of Job where Job had everything, and the devil made. I mean, the God and the devil made almost a bet, and the only rule was that God told the devil was that you can't kill him. You can take everything from him. And for the listeners who like don't know, God had pointed Job out to the devil and said, "Hey, that's one of my better people. He loves me. He will never denounce me." And the devil said, "He's only with you because you give him all this blessing." And God said, "Hey, all right, go ahead, do what you're going to do, but he's not going to go against me." The devil took everything from him. His friends blamed him, boom, boom, boom. In the end, he never denounced God, and he got everything back. And then more. But then you get one thing, and he said, "God, why did you have this happen to me?" And for 77 questions, God said, "You don't ask me about the sun comes up. You ask me where the dew on the grass comes. You don't ask me about the moon." In other words, God said, "How dare you ask me why, when I've given you all this other stuff? Basically, it's none of your business why." Now that I'm God, I think that if we're truly going to ask God questions, we have to ask about, God, why are you allowing us to breathe? Why are you allowing you to have kids who are breathing and healthy? So it's a double-edged sword. Did I go off on a tangent, or did that make sense?
No. I mean, there are no tangents on this podcast. That's the beauty of it. You had me thinking of Arthur Ashe. You probably heard the story of when he died of AIDS through HIV that he contracted through a transfusion. When he was first diagnosed and people would ask him, "Do you ever ask God, why me?" And he's like, "If I ask God, why me for something like this, and I have to ask him, why me for all the good things that have happened in my life."
There you go.
I love that quote from him.
You basically took my 5-minute story summarized in 30 seconds.
The story of Job is a long story, but I think you need to see all the details to get to it. And my story wouldn't have made as much sense without your abbreviated story of Job, because you made it short.
Okay.
Are there ways to bridge the divides between people with different spiritual or philosophical perspectives to work toward shared goals?
Ways to bridge the divide. I think there is. And it's given to us in the Bible and even in the Quran. It's real simple. Love your neighbor. If you love your neighbor as though they were you or your family who you love, it solves everything. Because there's some things we wouldn't do to our family members who we love. Notice I'm separating out family members who we love. There's some things you wouldn't do to children. So when that guy cuts you off in traffic, if that were your son, would you argue with him? Would you pass your son or daughter by who's hungry? So if you truly love your neighbor the way that God loves you, I believe that fixes. We don't treat each other better. We would even think more positively about one another. It would govern our actions. And so I think that simple tool, that simple belief of treat your neighbor as you would want to be treated, could solve everything.
Now, why is that hard?
Oh, I have an answer for fear. Fear, lack of abundance. It all boils down to me. You think someone's going to do something to you. You think someone's going to get something from you. So it all boils down from a lack of, the feeling of a lack of abundance. Whereas if you come from an abundance point of view, you see somebody on the street, you give. Why? Because you know you got more coming. Even if it's not there, you're believing more is coming. It comes back to what we talked about earlier in the show. Your fear. Fear is nefarious. It is insidious. It's something that if you don't guard against it, it can just come up in little ways.
And just in the last episode of this podcast, I brought up an assignment that I do with a lot of my students in my pathophysiology and exercise class. I have them read The Tragedy of the Commons, which is a 1968 essay by Garrett Hardin. Essentially deals with the growing population and the impact that has on the limited resources in the world. And it addresses questions of population growth and regulation, but it has a bit more of a deeper, to me, a deeper meaning. The Commons is the area, it was like supposedly in feudal England, where the farmers could each put one cow on the land, and that would be sustainable. As long as they only kept one cow on the land, there was enough grass to continue to feed the cows, and it didn't overgraze or any of that. But then invariably somebody will say, well, what's one more cow on the land? And typically that one cow is not going to do a lot of damage, and what damage that they do is going to be spread across everybody. So it's a little less noticeable. This hurt to me isn't as much because my neighbor's taken on some of that. And if I have 10 farmers on this commons, only 1/10 of the issue is really coming on me. And so somebody else says, well, he put another cow on there. It didn't do much harm. I'm going to put another cow. And we continue to do that. A lot of it is that human nature that we're not really harming things if we do this. And we get the gain that I get is much greater than the impact that I'm having on everybody else, but not realizing that the impact we're having on everybody else becomes cumulative. I think that kind of touches to the idea of love your neighbor as well. There's that fear, but there's also a sense of self-preservation, which I guess is fear as well. But so how do we then overcome that fear?
If you recognize it, acknowledge it, if you want in your spare time to search out why it's there, being able to move past fear. We do it every day. Maybe you're walking home at night and something doesn't feel right, but you keep walking and you move past it. Go into the office, but you've got an upset boss and you're fearful about going on, you move past it. If we would just practice moving past fear for the intention of connecting with other people and connecting through other people through love. I don't need a romantic love, just I see you as a person and I am a person, and let me share. In no way am I being grandiose and thinking that, hey, let me give you my whole house. But as you pointed, if you're not greedy, you always got something you can give. You always have something you can give. You always have a helping hand. And most of us, if you listen to a podcast, chances are you got a phone, you have a computer, so you probably have something else that you can give. You could probably take care of some basic needs. The fact that you have those other things like the phone.
I always tend to see that the least selfish people are the people that have the least. And I think a lot of that is because all they have is love. The more we have, the more we have to give up, and the more fear we have of giving that up.
The more you have, the more you have to lose. That is so incredibly true. That is so incredibly true. Those who have the least, they want to give the most.
And do you still carry, what was it, an extra $5 in your wallet?
I will tell you, I've stepped it up.
Stepped it up. Good for you.
I carry a 5, a 10, and a 20. And for the sole purpose of giving. And it feels good. It feels good. Every so often, I just keep wallet. I keep cash in the house. I regularly know if I'm out, I'll just go to the ATM machine. I'll put it in there, and that way, and when you do that for a while, you forget about it. And so when you're giving it away, because I don't always go someplace where there's somebody that I give it to. But when you start to put in a wallet, you don't miss that cash. It's not part of your operating budget.
Right.
So it's easier to give. Giving is so incredibly selfish because it makes you feel really, really good.
So you don't have to answer this question, but I'm going to ask it, and we can always edit it out if we have to. But you said a 5, a 10, and a 20. Which do you give out first?
Oh, you bet. You said it's a great question. It depends. It's on a number of different factors. I was recently in San Francisco. I was doing my regular run. In San Francisco, they have a big homeless population.
Oh, yeah.
I'm ready to give. I don't get me wrong. If no one asks or if I don't see a need, I don't give it. But on this particular day, I started my run, and this guy comes up to me early in the run and says, no, I see him ask somebody else. The guy just brushes him off. And so I said, okay, hey, I go and I give him a 5. I don't have a 5, a 10, and a 20. I think I had a 52. I give her 5, and he said, a 5? Are you sure? Wow, thank you. And I ran ahead and ran. And my entire run, I'm thinking, why did I give him a 10? Why did I give him a 20? And this guy who was this game, he's over 50, would have been fine. I looked for him when I came back, and he was found. So deciding who to give it to can create trauma too.
Right. And I think that could be challenging too, because, you know, you put yourself at risk of judging that person's need. And we don't want to do that.
That's true. However, God calls us to be good stewards of his blessings. You have one of the nicest shoes and a backpack. I'm just not giving. I'm just not giving. Now, I don't mind giving, and you need money for alcohol and drugs. I don't mind giving for that. Because I don't give it to you if you're an alcoholic. You can die from withdrawal seizures. And if you need drug money, if I don't give it to you, you're going to go rob somebody. So here you go. I'm giving. And I feel good about it.
Yeah. That is, and it's such a great principle to do what you're doing. Now you're really putting more pressure on me. You said you've stepped it up since I talked to you last time. So I got to work on that a little bit more.
Especially, let me tell you why we need to work on it. Most people don't carry cash. So they can always say, I don't have cash. So I encourage my readers and listeners, carry cash, not for you. Carry cash for our brothers and sisters who don't have cash in, who don't have that type of thing, who are going to need something from us. We have to do our part and be prepared to give it.
And we can always start small. You start at 5 and go to 10. And have you given out a 50 yet?
I have a couple times.
Wow.
It was a great need. But I don't want to misrepresent. And I'm not going to do it every day. Now, I can do it every. I don't go to places where it's a need every day. Now, I will admit, if I'm in a grocery store, and I see somebody putting something back because they don't have the money for it, pay for it, I will do that. And I think a lot of that is because, my issues when I was in college. You remember in college, you go to a grocery store and you really wanted that extra loaf of bread, and you had to put it back. Yeah. I wish then somebody would say, here, because back here's $1 for this loaf of this like loaf of bread. So I call myself bridging that gap, because some of us are just in transition to becoming more financial.
And so our listeners and viewers that are like, well, I can't afford to carry a 50 around, carry a 1. Carry some quarters in your pocket.
And let's be clear, I don't recommend giving out 50. Did you notice when you asked your question, I said a few times. I didn't say that it was regular. And one time, the family, they were clearly, they were clearly in need. It was one that, and I not giving it, God was in a lightning bolt. It was that plain and simple. So I don't want people to think I walk around and I give out 50. 9% of the time, I do not give out 50.
Yeah, because people will be looking for you. Don't give me a 50.
Exactly.
I've had times where I've been out of work and really financially tight. And I remember one woman at my church, Rose, came up to me one weekend and put something in my hand. I thanked her and put it in my pocket. I get home and it was a 50, exactly what I needed to get through. That's one of those times when the universe took care of me.
I was active, taking care of you. Yeah. So again, giving is something we can all do.
Yeah. And that person, you worry about giving them the 20 because they might buy alcohol or drugs with it. Giving them that active, giving it to them. They might spend it on alcohol or drugs to get through that moment, but there could be something switched in their mind that says, man, that guy gave me this, not judging me. I've got to kick this. And it may just be what they need to, get through the fix, but to change their lives.
You've done your part. You've given. Mm-hmm. Anything else is extra. If they choose to change or not change, that's none of my business. I understand why you drink. I understand why you're not alcoholic. I've had a chance to interview you. You've had a rough past. In fact, one of the hospitals I work is a VA. Profound respect for these veterans. And then while we don't endorse drinking and alcoholism, and some of these people, what they have been through, I see why they drink away some of these memories. I get it. I understand. Let me give. I don't give begrudgingly either. I give happily. Hey, here you go. It's not a lot of fanfare. And I do this especially with men. I'll slip it to them. Or if I'm somewhere and you don't know about the person's mental status, is it okay if I give you a little something? And that goes over well as well. They're doing me a favor. It changes the dynamics. And often people will look at you and you can tell 95% of people, even if they don't say thank you, they give you a look like, I appreciate you.
Yeah. Again, this is one of those long, pregnant, wow moment pauses that I'm going to have frequently on this podcast.
Oh, I'm sure your podcast, like, hey, this thing is going to blow up. No doubt.
So I don't want to take too much of your time today because I know you are a busy person. What's one piece of wisdom or insight from your own life or work that you believe can help others address spiritual challenges?
This lands for me, and I tend to use it a lot too. It's a simple quote. As within, so without. In other words, as you are inside, the world will be on the outside. People often talk about changing the world. I thought, no, if I change the world, you change you. And so the point I'm making is, anything you want to change, be your biggest cheerleader. And this is going to sound contradictory. Lie to yourself. Because if you tell a lie to anybody over and over again, it becomes believable. You can tell a lie to yourself over and over again until it's believable, until it's true. Like you may not be able to play basketball. Hey, you tell yourself, I'm the best basketball player. I'm getting good. You keep saying that to yourself. The energy, when you'll start to believe it, you'll start to believe it. The next thing you know, it's true. So it's all, and the point I'm making is, you get to tell yourself anything you want. The world is yours. The universe is yours. Why, Rich? Why say I'm just okay? I'm sure that you deal with this with some of your students when they present themselves as okay. I say to them, wait a minute. And you can write about anything? And you presenting yourself as okay? No. Present the best part of you. The best part of you. And have the best thoughts about you as well.
I think I am going to end there because there's nothing that I can add to that statement.